class because this is the first time with Melissa Yamaguchi. I am so excited that we are live on both Facebook and YouTube at the same time. So those of you who are getting instructions on Facebook and putting in the queue, I'm also going to invite you on YouTube that if you have any questions for our teacher today in our broad class, because it's not a broadcast, it's not a show, it's really a place where we can grow and learn together. So today we're going to talk about Feng Shui. Now, it's not just about moving furniture a certain way, it's that and much more. So fasten your seatbelts because
You are not live yet.
You're not live? Oh my God, and you let me ramble on.
Well, I've been waiting for it to come on. There's always a 20, 30 second delay, but I don't see live on either one yet.
Okay, so I see us. I'm live. I see it now. I'm seeing it. So I'm seeing us on YouTube. Let me see if I see us on Facebook. Oh, we're live on both. So fasten your seatbelts. We're going to learn and grow together. Here we go. It's time to dance. By the way, I didn't tell you that. It's time to dance with my theme song. Here we go.
The Lillian McDermott Show.
We love, we fear, bridges we burn, we make mistakes, then we live and learn. When life gets tough, and it seems like your best ain't good enough. If you're in need of hope, you know where I'll be right here, right here. And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here, waiting for you.
This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Hello, my viewing friends. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful, best day ever. This is the first time we're broadcasting live. For those of you who are listening on the podcast later on, we are live on Facebook and YouTube. You can ask your questions to our teacher today, Melissa Yamaguchi. We're going to talk about Feng Shui. So any question that you have, type in a Q and write your question after the cue. A lot of people make comments, but today I just want to encourage you to learn the rules. You teachers' pets, if you're in the classroom already, type in a Q and you can write your questions. If we don't get to the questions in the broad class, we'll get you after with all the teachers' pets that are staying after class today. So today we're going to be talking because, for those of you who are tuning in because you want to learn all about Feng Shui, please know, and this is your first time tuning in, please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friends, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Now, today, as I mentioned, we have Melissa Yamaguchi. And if you haven't heard of her, then you're in for a treat. And if you're tuning in today because you know she's in the classroom, then you know that you're going to learn and grow as well. She is a dynamic energy therapist and a Feng Shui speaker and educator. She travels the world teaching lessons on balance of individual through the practice of Feng Shui. She has been a student of Feng Shui for such a long time. And I had the privilege of meeting her when I went to California, and we were in the earthing conference that we did a conference, and I was able to hear her. This was for the first time hearing about Feng Shui, and I said, "Oh my gosh, she is going to be a teacher in the classroom, and we're going to learn about how we can use." It's not just about moving furniture around; it's the history that she is so rich with history that we're going to learn about today. We're going to talk about how the energy in our life controls us how we can control and take our power back, especially now in a time with the coronavirus that most of us feel that our control has been taken away. I am excited that today of all days, we have Melissa Yamaguchi. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that she's here to do just that. Welcome to the classroom for being our teacher. Thank you so much, Melissa.
Thank you, Lily. Thank you for having me.
Well,
an
I
honor
tell
to
you,
be here.
there's so much. When you started talking about Feng Shui, I thought you were going to be moving the furniture around, but you didn't. You gave us a history lesson. Tell us about you and your background and how you stumbled or how you became such a wonderful teacher in this healing modality.
Well, thank you, first of all, for your kind words. And I would be remiss if I didn't confess that any attributes, any positive attributes that should be applied towards my teaching abilities lie strictly within the matriarchal line of my family. I come
Wow.
from 4 or 5 generations of teachers in my family, all on my mother's side. And so I attribute a lot of my skill to them. So thank you.
Mhm.
But I was in the field of teaching and I taught English and I wasn't happy, nothing to do with the fellow teachers or with students. I wasn't happy with the restrictions placed on teaching. So I left Oklahoma, where I'm from, and I moved out to California to visit my mother. She was living out here teaching, and I thought, well, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I thought, well, maybe I'll go back to school and I'll become an architect because the design has always intrigued me. And as I was studying architecture, I stumbled across this term called Feng Shui, but being from Oklahoma, I think I called it Feng Shui. But stumbled across this and I didn't even know what it meant. I'd never heard about it. And I'd only been walking the earth 20 some odd years at that point, but I'd never even heard of it.
Mhm.
And so I began studying a deep, deep dive into what this concept called Feng Shui was.
Okay.
And I discovered that the genesis of Feng Shui, all of its tenets lie in this whole philosophy and this book called the I Ching. And this book called the I Ching is so similar in design and understanding to the Farmer's Almanac, which I completely understood growing up in the farmland in Oklahoma. So understanding that we have this connection, this, at the time I didn't understand energetic, being from the Bible Belt, you attribute everything to your relationship with God. So if when you go outside, that's God talking to you when this is happening. So I understood this concept, however the terminology was placed, it still resonated with me. I was so intrigued that by picking up this book called the I Ching, which literally translates into the book of the book of principles, it made so much sense. The English version made so much sense to me that I turned to my husband and my newly wedded husband, and I said, I think I'm meant to teach this. And he said, how do
Wow.
you know? And I said, because it makes so much sense. It makes so much sense. And when you try something the very first time and it flows with ease and grace, then it's probably meant to be a part of your journey. Other things we have to work hard. I keep telling myself that's probably why I don't exercise as much as I should. It's not ease and grace that I'm sliding into. So some things need to be worked on. However, this was such an easy fit.
Mhm.
So that's how I came across it. Once I came across that and saw and learned as much as I was with my own understanding, I knew I needed to dive deeper. And so I started researching some of the most prolific teachers, some of the most highly recommended teachers on Feng Shui. I didn't want to just get how to learn Feng Shui stupid from a bookstore. I wanted to
For
really
dummies.
understand the history and understand the this was a 4,000-year-old science.
Mhm.
And like any good science, once practiced, it becomes an art. And I wanted to understand that. So I went to Malaysia and found what was supposed to be one of the better teachers. And her name is Lily, by the way.
Aw, I
And
like her already.
yes, absolutely. And she was very reluctant to bring me into her fold because I was a Western white woman.
Mm.
However, she did. She did. It's been a while since I've spoken to her. She's not doing well. But she taught me all the good basics from where I could spring forward. And so that was 20, almost 22 years ago, maybe,
Wow.
maybe a little bit more.
But you instantly became thirsty for this truth. And so you called the book the I Ching. How do you spell that?
E is the letter I. Jing is CHIN like Nancy, G like go. I Jing. And the CHI sounds like a J. So I Jing
Uh-huh.
is how it's pronounced.
Wonderful. And that was a book that you just happened to pick up?
Well, when I saw this term feng shui, I didn't know what it meant.
Oh.
So I went to the public library.
And
I went, the good old Dewey Decimal System. I started
Mm.
looking up, and it was really labeled underneath architecture. And Frank Lloyd Wright had referred to it a bunch of times, which made sense to me because I was studying architecture. I thought I wanted to go back and get my degree in architecture. But that's how I came across it in that way. I stumbled across it really organically.
And so as this is making sense to you, this has completely transformed your life, because now when I was hearing you talk about the history and all the beauty and splendor of this feng shui, all we get to hear, or that when we think of feng shui, we think of moving furniture.
That's
And
right.
so let's talk about feng shui, and what is it about that kind of, and I don't, for lack of a better word, feng shui, using the word to moving things around, that brings that energy back to us.
The concept of feng shui itself, feng meaning wind, shui meaning water. It's when those are in balance, your land is in balance, your life is in balance. Feng shui originated out of China, which is a total agrarian society. Everything relied upon how profitable the nation could be from their exporting of rice at that time. So when the feng shui masters discovered this concept of feng shui, it was really an understanding, how do we get the water to the product on the land? How do we ensure that the wind isn't destroying our crops as it blows? Do we have to put the crop southeast to northwest in order to assure that the wind and the water don't destroy it, that we're getting enough water from the stream? And thus, that's how that began. The reason that we use it in a way that brings such resonance and calm to our lives is twofold. One is, as you're moving items around and you're placing them in a pattern that creates flow. You're not bumping into a table with your hip. You're not knocking over a lamp as you're going to light a switch. As it creates flow, you move through your house with ease. The second half of that is that you are in control. The reason that we have so much chaos in our lives, especially during our times right now, this unprecedented time in life, is because there's no control. When we as human species know, even if it's bad news, once we know how to start getting ready, even if we don't like what we know. If you know that a divorce is coming, if you know that you're sick, you may not like it, but at least you can start being in some form of control. That's why feng shui appeals to so many people. And it's because it's moving things for flow, and it's a sense of control and putting life back in your hands as opposed to just being a doormat and letting it happen to you.
Interesting that you would say that feng shui is about the control. And the reason why I say that is I've maybe this is a limiting belief that I have, but I feel that control is an illusion, that we really don't have control, that we might be a participant and we may be a willing participant in something. But as far as control, there's so many things, like look at what's happening now with the coronavirus. We feel that we don't have control, but we never really did.
I agree with you, but let me offer.
I would love that.
Let me offer you my opinion on that. And
Yes.
opinions are, we know what they say about opinions, but let me offer what my belief is
No,
on this.
I love that.
I believe that if you acquiesce and don't assume control, just for yourself, just for your life, just for your lane, then you are flowing without any kind of, and maybe some people like to flow in that way where they don't have to, it gives them some peace to know, well, it's not up to me. There's a greater power, there's a greater force, whatever that is. However, I believe we do have control when given the facts we don't have facts about the coronavirus. That's why that's why everyone's in such chaos and panicking and cleaning the shelves in the grocery store and taking all the toilet paper and all the water. And now I'm hearing that the meat is the possibility of running scarce. Whatever that is fear-based. Fear-based control means you have zero. You've lost all control. You have none. I utilize the term control in this sense. Words have vibration. And so when I say control, I know that that's a trigger for some people because they don't want to be controlled. I don't want to be controlled. God forbid somebody tries to control me. However, when I have control, when I've got the reins to my own horse in my hands, and I can pull to hear head right, or pull to hear left, or pull it up to stop it completely, then I am the master of my fate. All too often, we give up control. We give it up to the government. We give it up to, what's your social security number? Oh, here it is. What's your information? And we pass on control so willy-nilly. If we would just pull in a little bit and understand that with a modicum of understanding and a bit of restraint, we can walk this journey, this path of life with a purpose. I think control leads you to a purpose once you have it in your mind clear. That's what I believe.
I love that. And I really do believe that each one of us has a word that means maybe the same thing, but maybe we call it something different.
That's right.
So the one word that I always say that is part of the classroom is ownership, responsibility. It's taking responsibility, but responsibility, just like maybe control, responsibility has a bum rap. When you think of the word responsibility, you think of, fine, I'll take the blame, the fault, the shame, the duty. That's what is behind the word responsibility. But when I hear you talk about control, I think responsibility. I'm in it. I am in it. I'm taking ownership. And I am open to whatever happens.
Lily, I love that, because the tagline for my company is, if you own your energy, you own your life. And so what you just said just falls right in line with this term control, this term responsibility. It is ownership. You're absolutely right. I completely concur. And I believe that. That's what I tell my company is my energy. And it's really about understanding this is who I am. I must take responsibility for who I am and how I interact and how I navigate through this life. And when I can do that, then I can have some semblance of control and responsibility and ownership.
Yes. And ultimately empowerment and freedom.
That's right.
And I think to me, that's what the responsibility I promote and the control that you promote. It's empowerment and
That's
freedom.
exactly right.
And so whether it's freedom of speech, speaking your truth, whatever it is that is. So Feng Shui, when I heard your talk, and it was so educational. And I wish I could have just captured that moment and rebroadcast it. And so, but when I was listening to you, I thought, this is beyond moving furniture.
Yes.
This is everything I do. And I remember that interaction that you and I had towards the end, when I'm like saying, okay, you need to come on. And you said, okay, tell me when you were born, tell me the time of day. I mean, you've got this down to a science. And we're thinking Feng Shui is just about, well, when I say we, I mean I'm thinking that Feng Shui is just about moving furniture. This is about the energy that we must own. And so that we can. So let's take it from the very beginning. I was snooping around your website, which, by the way, is melissayamaguchi.com. And when I got to the bottom section, I noticed that there was a book called What the Feng Shui. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to subscribe so that I can get a copy of your, like, one of the chapters. But I was reading on there that there are 12 energy principles. And I thought, ooh, that really intrigued me. And since this is conversational, I just thought, help us understand these principles to
Absolutely.
Feng Shui.
If I may, I want to kind of give the viewers and listeners a bit of a background understanding about Feng Shui and why.
Okay.
So as I mentioned earlier, China is an agrarian society. And at this time, 4,000 plus years ago, the emperors, whenever he would get into place, as it was male dominated, as the emperors would get into play, they were always trying to see what kind of legacy they could leave. And it wasn't enough to have one son if he wasn't strong enough. So the harem of wives, and which of these sons could play out to be the next. So they were always trying to create legacy. And at this time, during the during this dynasty, this emperor in particular, about 4,000 years ago, was wanting to understand how he could get a foothold on the exporting of his rice. So he brought in all of his leading geniuses. He brought in his mathematicians, his scientists, his geologists, his astronomers. This was not seen to the Chinese at this time as some voodoo, hoodoo, astrology, tarot card reading. I'm not bashing any of that. Trust me, I'm not, because I'm just saying at that time, they saw this strictly as scientific and mathematical. How do we understand the land? Good farming is scientific and mathematical. So how do I understand this land? How do I capture the best of this land? How do I optimize the energy of the land and the wind and the water so that I can have the best, healthiest, hardiest crop so I can make the most money? Well, all of his geniuses got to work, and they began journaling and chronicling every single aspect of every day, every minute, to the month, to the year. And when I say every aspect, I mean every aspect. How was the soil? How was the weather? Where was the sun positioned? How did the moon come up? How were the people behaving? Let's trace the child that's born this year on this minute, on this day, this month of this year. Everything was chronicled. They discovered that on year 13, the energy was so similar to year 1 that they noticed very soon after, year 14 was like year 2, 13, 3, and so forth, that there was a 12-year pattern. So every 12 years, the energy folded back to very similar patterns of the previous year. So in every 12 years, we have an energy that reintroduces itself. Now, with that, these geniuses, these masters, would impart this information to the emperor, who would then apply. And he was so incredibly prolific, so incredibly successful that he became wealthier. More wives were added, more lanterns were being hung out, more horses were brought into the fold. And the people, it was a very hierarchical society, and the lowest stratosphere people were the farmers and the police officers and the people who did manual labor. And at this time, they each were given a different color vest to wear as identifiers. The men who wore the yellow vest, the farmers in particular, started noticing that the emperor was getting wealthier. More wives were being added to the palace. More horses were being brought in. The military seemed to be growing. His silk clothing, his dressings were coming more frequently. And the Chinese always believed that an emperor was sent by heaven. And if the emperor was healthy and doing very well, the people didn't mind as long as he shared that wealth with the people. But at this particular time, the farmers started noticing, we're producing a lot of crop. He's having more silk dressings. More beautiful women are lining up. Horses are coming. And yet I can't feed my children. So there became this rumbling, as has to happen sometimes, this rumbling of the people. And they began meeting, and they agreed, after much deliberation and much superstition about taking on an emperor who was sent by heaven. But they agreed he couldn't have been sent by heaven. We're hungry, we're hurting, we're starving. How can this person have been heaven sent? So they agreed to stage a coup. They were going to storm the palace and overthrow. And they decided that in order to be able to spot their brothers, that they would tie their yellow vest around their head so they could see each other during the melee. And they stormed the palace. It became known as the Yellow Rebellion. The masters who had culminated all of this information for the emperor had been sequestered into a private area of the palace, but they knew what was coming. They gathered all their journals and they fled to the mountains. And they agreed, while in hiding, we have got to get this information to the people. They're going to kill us. And besides, they do deserve to know. The emperor had hoarded it all himself. But they soon realized their challenges were that all of their documentation had been written down in mathematical and scientific terminology, in algorithms, in scientific algebraic equations, that there's no way that the average man and woman in China at that time most certainly could have understood, because the emperor had kept them uneducated. He said they don't need education, they just need to work. And so they couldn't read, many of them at that time. So with that information, they began studying these years, this day, and and they found that these 12 energies resembled an animal. So they labeled the rat and the tiger and the horse and the sheep and thus and so on. So, and all of the animals are actual animals with the exception of the dragon. And the reason that the dragon is there because it's of such great mystical lore and legend in China. So it had to be there. And so it's fascinating, but that's how this all began. And so with that understanding, they realized that not only does that animal, that indicator, that stamp, give you energy that identifies the year you're born, but it also there's an energy that identifies the month, your day, and your hour. And each one of those indicators can tell you about yourself, something different about yourself, depending on where it lies.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay. So with all of that, how do we use this information to become abundant, whether it's for our career and our marriage, our relationships, our crops? How do we do that? How do we use it?
It's my opinion that when we take this information, once you know, you can't run and hide from it, who you are. Once you look at this energy, I call it your energetic DNA. Once you look at this and you can have a place marker, a marker on how you vibrate, then you can start to understand how you move. Once you understand it, then you know how to greet the day, how to greet other people, how to identify which jobs do and do not work for you. Now, some people may be saying, well, that's just great, but I don't have a choice. I've got to take what job I can. I've got children to feed. I respect that. But if you can't control the job in order to bring in money, you can control your hobbies. You can control how you spend your free time. So it's an indicator of how you vibrate and move. I don't love skeptics, but I remember one time in particular, remember the two old grumpy men in the balcony on Sesame Street? I always have at least one in an audience. And I'm sure as a speaker, you can understand every once in a while, there's someone who's skeptical. And I know that they're there to make me better. I keep telling myself that. Anyway, so I had this guy who said, this is all hogwash. This is nothing more than Myers-Briggs. And I said, perhaps, but it's a 4,000-year-old Myers-Briggs. And give me an example. Tell me tell me about your family. Don't tell me anything. Don't tell me if it was your mother, your father, male, female. It doesn't matter. Just give me birth dates. He gave it all to me. And I regurgitated to him what he had said, how it was not true. But I said, having what you said, consider this. And I gave him the information on each one of his family members. And he sat there with his mouth agape. And he said, it's uncanny. Now, I didn't know this man from Adam. But yet I could tell just by looking at the energy, how he moved through his life and how he fit in or not with his family members. Why this man in particular felt like an outsider. His brothers and his mother and father all got along beautifully, seamlessly. And he was always the thorn in the heel. He never could get along with his family. So it's an indicator of your job. Companies will hire me to, much like they do Myers-Briggs experts, to understand how their teams vibrate together. How are they moving? Are they understanding one another? So I apologize having to keep doing this. I'm I move a lot with my hands.
No problem.
But so how we can use it is once we understand our energy, then we understand how we relate to others and how we can control our day. Every single day, your energy vibrates in 4 different levels. It either vibrates low with a little bit of high with a little bit of low, or high. Now, I always tell my clients that when you're vibrating high, I hope you're curing cancer. There's all things you need to be doing. But when you're low, it doesn't mean you need to pull the covers over your head. It merely means that once you know, which goes back to my original statement, once you have an understanding of what's going on, then you can take responsibility, have control, and own your day. If you own your energy, you own your life. If I know that I'm vibrating low, I don't speed. I make sure my seatbelt's on. I don't open up letters if they come from the IRS. I don't talk to that one client who gets under my skin. I try to maneuver things in a way to be good to myself and ultimately good to others.
Now, when you know your energy is low, what is your ritual to discover your own energy and be real? Because sometimes people say, oh, I am the most open individual, and everybody around them going, no, you're not, you're very close. And
Yeah.
or how do you bring out the truth about your energy of the day?
Well, for my clientele, they receive a text by app from an app stating, today you're vibrating at this level. But for me, I've been doing this for years, and I write the energies on the refrigerator, so everybody in the family can see here where everybody else is vibrating. And if I'm low, I call myself on it. But I start the day when I'm discovering the energies and I'm doing the vibrational charts, and I know that my energy is low. I try my hardest. I cheat a little bit because I have an advance notice here. So I do most of my work on days that are high. You and I are the same annual energy. So this is a high day for you and me. We both have good energy. And I purposely requested this day with Brooke to be interviewed with you, so I knew that you and I would both be at our optimum best, that we would both be strong. So I manipulate it. And people will say, Melissa, that's highly manipulative. Learning to smile is manipulative.
Yes,
it's doing it for
exactly.
the good reasons, that it's okay. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I want to be the best for you that I can be. And in
Sure.
order to do that, I have to understand where I am. If my energy is low, then I have to be honest with myself and say, oh, Melissa, you're snapping for no reason. You're misinterpreting. And I've had my husband's probably a perfect example. He says, I know it says my energy is low. However, I got to tell you, I feel dynamite. And I said, good for you. However, even if you're feeling dynamite and it's a low day, you can be saying 2 + 2 is 4, but your audience will hear that you said 2 + 2 is 5. It's not how you think you're vibrating. It's how you're also received, how you are interpreted. So when your energy is low, it doesn't mean you put on a muzzle and stay home. It just means that you are aware, like, I cannot bring anything onto myself. I have to own my energy. If I own it and I can say, this isn't the time for me to go out with friends. This isn't the time for me to go for a job interview. If I have to, I'll push through, but I really would need to try to get to my best self.
But is that okay? What our reality is our perception. Our perception is our reality, and what we believe is how we what we create.
Yes.
And so if I have a chart of what my life is going to be like on every single day, because they've studied somebody else with that chart, then does it become a self-fulfilling prophecy?
I would challenge. Now that's a great question. And let me pause for a second and step back for a moment, because my son said something to me the other day. He said he was reading, my daughter was reading something to us as a family. And my son said, that could be said about anybody. You could read it to anybody and they'd say, yeah, that sounds like me. And I said, okay, that's true. I said, however, don't look at your energy, because my family receives their energy charts. If you didn't look at your day, if you didn't look at you didn't know how you were vibrating today by my calculations. And I know that it's low, which is one of the reasons he was so contentious. But if you didn't know, then tell me how if you got up and you were in a sour mood, but I could call you 30 minutes later and say, you're not doing well today. What's going on? Would you think I was just psychic? Or was it because we are so connected to the power of this earth?
Yes.
That energy is, and let me sidestep, if I may. I want to come back to that, and I will. Let me sidestep and explain how the energetic vibrations affect us and why.
Okay.
Energy is emanating from the core of this earth nonstop. And when you are born and you take that gasp of air, that's when they write down the time you're born on your birth certificate, or when they mark it. When you've taken that gasp, with that minute, 4:04 a.m., 5:22 p.m., whatever it is, on the 15th of June in 1970, that is your energetic DNA. That's that first breath. Now it's almost sealed. That's who you are.
Wow.
What that means is your vibrational make responds to the energy that's emanating from the earth differently than the person who is born even 5 minutes later, on the same day, in the same month, in the same hour. That's why identical twins can be so different. So we each are vibrating internally. The reason that you would be able to overcome that or supersede that, which is all of our goals. Our goal is to overcome, listen, there's markers. I'm male, I'm female, I'm Republican, I'm Democrat, I'm independent, I'm Afghani, I'm Japanese, whatever
Sure,
the
sure.
markers are
Mhm.
the ultimate goal is of nirvana really is to erase all the markers and just be
Mhm.
and just be a spirit, a light inside that identifies with your light inside so that we can connect. That's our ultimate goal. But until we get there, while we are working and growing, we need to understand the tools with which we're working. We need to understand I've got a hammer in my hand and not a kid glove. I have to know how to move. And I have to be responsible. If I wake up and I've got a hammer in my hand, and then the next day I wake up with a kid glove, I need to be responsible for other people's reactions if I'm willy-nilly throwing my arms around. So that's where the vibration comes from. Now, how do we know that it's us and does it control us? Only in that if you lie down and go, well, you just got to understand, I'm an alcoholic. I like to drink. You've got to understand. No, I don't have to understand. You need to get that. You need to work with that. I don't get to say, you got to understand, Lily, I'm having a bad day. So I'm going to make this session horrible for you because I'm having a bad day. No, I have to get my spine straight, own who I am, own the fact that I'm vibrating. I may have spilled coffee on my white pants on the way over here. Whatever happens, I need to take responsibility and ownership of who I am. It doesn't give you permission to sidestep it. But each one of us wakes up vibrating every single day. At every moment during the day, we're vibrating. And so it's about understanding that vibration.
And I love what you're saying because, if I am aware of my vibration for today, then I could either, can I step it up a notch?
Absolutely.
Or can I bring it? So I have the power, I have the control saying, although this is a low vibrational day and I have to be at high energy, these are some of the things I can do to maybe go from something else's surplus.
Yes.
Okay. So how do I do?
Absolutely. I'll tell you some ways. Take food to an older person who can't get out of their house. Donate money to the shelter. But stop and pick a rose from your garden and hand it to the post lady as she's driving down the street. Do something for other people. When we take the self-deprecating, whining, I'm having a bad day, when we take it off of ourselves and realize there are people who have no homes, who have no food, who are dying alone with this insidious disease, virus that's out, whatever's happening, we can take it off of ourselves by doing good for others. Yes, I'm having a bad day, but I'm going to do something good. That starts to shift your energy because now it's not about you. There are other people who are hurting. And so a form of kindness and a selfless act and an expression of gratitude can shift your energy every single time.
I love that. And I've heard of the elements, the elements of fire and water and wind, and are these things that we're also, because you had talked about the animals, but
Yes.
how do the energy, the wood, fire, earth, metal, water, the five energies, how do they interact with if I'm a rat or a horse or a tiger? How does that?
Perfect. Those 5 elemental energies that have been identified as fire, earth, metal, water, and wood they are more dominant on some years than others, which goes back straight to the Farmer's Almanac. You can look and see which elements of the soil are more prevalent, what's going to be happening when it's bound to rain more frequently, whatever. Those elements are so ingrained in everyday life for the Chinese way of eating, a way of dressing, way of identifying. You may have been born the year of a water energy, in a wood month, on a fire day, in a metal hour. So you encompass, the more energies you have, the more those elements you have. In Feng Shui, we say you have the basket of 5. You're well-rounded. Now, some people are born with fire all the way across. I had the most amazing experience. I was in Hawaii one time, and an auntie invited my family over to her house. Not my auntie, but she was someone's auntie because they're loving and sweet. She invited us over. And as I was talking to her about her energy, she was the year, the month, the day, and the hour of horse. Every single one. But all baskets. She was the year of the water horse and the wood horse. And it was fascinating. I'd never meant this before. And so we each have that energy in us. And each one of those elements is a marker, an indicator, a description, a moniker for an energy. Fire, as you can imagine, in food is spicy, in temperature is hot, and clothing is red, purple, or fuchsia, and personality is vivacious and passionate, right?
Mhm.
And each one of those elements encompasses something in that one of those spectrums. And so we use it as markers. We try to have a balance in our food, not taking too much spicy at night when we're going to be lying down,
Mhm.
because it will cause a rumbling in the tummy and boil the tummy. We try to be very cognizant of a balance always. And then in addition to the 5 elements, there's a concept in Feng Shui, and all of these relate to one another, called yin yang. And yin yang is identified by that Tai Chi symbol that we see, that has the two spheres, black and white. The
Yes.
Tai Chi is a symbol of, I mean, the yin and yang is an indicator of feminine and masculine, of the moon and the sun, of sweet and sour, salty. And in order to have balance, you should have a little bit of both. Um, it doesn't mean if you're incredibly feminine, you need to, spit on the ground. It just means that you
And
need to
scratch your
find,
balls.
that's right. You need
Sorry, I
to
don't know where that
find,
came from. Must be the rat in me.
you need to find balance. So that's what that all is. It's about finding balance in every single thing we're doing, whether it's identify of your element, earth, wind, or fire, the yin or the yang, the rat, the horse, or whatever you are. It's finding balance so that you can take control, have and own your life.
So let's go. And is there anything that you could add? Because I want to make sure that in my questioning we don't miss something out. But before we go there, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the fact that things are changing in this world. But one thing that will always remain is that when you go to whenyouneedafriend.com, you will find a place where you're safe, a place where we take ownership and we say the buck stops here. And as I mentioned before, between censorship and all that, we are working now on finding another platform, which we just have, and I'll share a little bit about that maybe tomorrow. Well, it's called BitChute. I'm going to be, once I feel comfortable with that, I'll put my link. That way, if this is a platform that is not censored, so if by chance all of a sudden you can't find us on Facebook or YouTube, you can always find us at whenyouneedafriend.com. So go to whenyouneedafriend.com, become a subscriber. Also subscribe to all my channels, whether it's YouTube, or like me and follow me on Facebook. That way you will always be connected to the broad class. So the class is yours. This is for us to learn and grow together. But it requires, and by the way, when you are a subscriber, you get all sorts of free gifts, and you also know before anybody else who's the teacher in the classroom, all their contact information. That way you can start maybe doing your own research, doing your own homework. So what I ask for you to do, because this requires time, energy, and money. And so what I ask is that you check out my sponsors, click on the sponsors button and check out all the sponsors in the classroom, because without them, we wouldn't have the flexibility to have Brooke, to have Robert, to be able to have guests that are just phenomenal. And so what I want to encourage you to check out my sponsors like Liberty Health Share, Keep Me Safe Organics, and Keep Me Safe Organics is the MLM version of Lily Rose, and we were talking about Lily Rose with Melissa as well. First Alternative Care, where it's telemedicine for your entire family for non-urgent medical needs, including the flu and the cold, by the way, and dermatology, and 3 hours a year of behavioral health counseling for the entire household for $45 a month. So check First Alternative Care. Dr. Stephen Grable, who is alternative functional, and he's in Jacksonville as well. He's been a teacher in the classroom. The pharmacy in Merritt Island, who's taken a stand. You don't even see them on we just mentioned, and they're saying, we believe in what you're doing, so we're supporting the classroom. Live Longer Medical, which you'll hear from Lisa in a couple of weeks. We're going to talk about sex. All we're going to talk about is that show's sex. Yes, we're going to find out how energy and their sex. So the next class with Lisa is going to be about sex and making you feel as good on the inside as you are on the outside. Live Longer Medical in Indiana, Atlantic, Florida. Ground therapy, of course, that's how I met Melissa Yamaguchi. We were at a conference, a workshop that they did, and she was one of the keynote speakers. Phenomenal. And of course, you can click onto the shopping bag if you want to learn more about ground therapy, and Brain Tap, where you get to rewrite the program in your head. And so please support our sponsors the way that they're supporting the classroom. And last but not least, you can become an enrolled student in the classroom and help out in whatever way you can, whether it's $1, $20, $200 a month, whatever you can afford to spend. This is your classroom to help out, get some pencils, whatever it is, so you can become an enrolled student. And there's packages there as well for you to be a part of that. And so please help out in any way, your time, your talent, your treasure. Today, we are so privileged to talk to Melissa Yamaguchi. You can find her at melissayamaguchi.com to learn more about Feng Shui and how Feng Shui affects our entire life. And it wasn't, Melissa, thank you so much for coming out there today and taking the time to speak to us. I really did not understand how we can use Feng Shui for every aspect of our life, every aspect.
For matchmaking, for how you raise your children, for how you work at your job, for the ideal job, for the all the way down. I have some clients who even call and say, I'm going to go out and buy a car, which is the best color for me. I mean, for everything. You're right. It's for everything. And it's exciting because you talked about how that one of your teachers is going to be talking about sex. And in Feng Shui, you know, there's an alignment. This is the reason why there were arranged marriages for so many years in China, is because they needed to have a balance of energy, and they wanted to have a successful relationship between husband and wife so that they could be prolific and have more children for the family.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's fascinating. I try to tell my children that they were good children, good stewards of their mother. They'd let me arrange their marriages, but they're not having anything to do with it.
Okay, so I remember when you were leaving, and you said, tell me when you were born. What's your what year were you born? What time? Do you know the time? And I knew everything, and I was so impressed with what you said that I came home, I found my baby book, and I learned that I was born at 4:03 p.m.
Yes.
on May 14th, 1963.
Okay.
So
I know a lot about you.
How do you use that? How do you use that without going, well, not going to get near her?
Well, listen, in Feng Shui, we say that some of the energies run in opposition. So sometimes you'll read a book, or if you go to the Chinese restaurant and they'll have the characters on the placemat and they'll say, this is not your friend, stay away. This is your enemy. I don't use that verbiage because I don't believe anybody's an enemy. I think once we understand our energy, we know how to move and accept other people. If I've had a bad day, if I'm vibrating low on Tuesday, but on Wednesday I'm high, and a driver drives by me honking, I just realize he's having a low day and doesn't understand how to work with it. So we become forgiving of other people. But with you're born the year of the rabbit. So what that tells me, rabbit energy is on a social level. Your year you're born is your social energy. That tells me how you navigate around people on a superficial level, like, just going out to a meeting or going to drop off a check at the bank. It doesn't have to be anything deep. That energy tells me that you're very kind. And above all, and I knew this the minute you and I spoke, you're very diplomatic. You do not want chaos. There's no need for it. This is a social setting. Please don't anybody get up and start losing their mind. Let's stay in control. So it's a form of diplomacy, of rabbit energy on a social level is very gentle. And you are the type of friend that if I were to say, does this white dress make my butt look big? You would say, no, but you know what? That black dress looks so fantastic on you. You would never say anything negative to me. You're not that blunt friend that would go, get that white dress off. It doesn't look good on you. You wouldn't say that. There's a diplomacy to rabbit energy. Now, the month you're born happens to be the month of snake. That's different than the way you are socially. Snakes are highly analytical. So you can overthink things. Did I turn off that? Wait, did I do that? You like checks and balances because you need to know. Snakes are the only energy that don't have legs. All the other animals have legs, so you've got to double check the path to make sure you don't get stepped on. So it's a need for understanding. We also know in Feng Shui that snake energy is some of the most intelligent. I don't want the other energies thinking I've got a high IQ. It has nothing to do with other energies not being intelligent. But snakes are so analytical and such thinkers that if I were to come to you with the problem at work, you wouldn't just go, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Melissa." You would instantly start to think of an answer. Have you thought about this? Have you thought? Because you are
No,
solutions driven.
that is a curse.
But it is for
But it's a
someone
gift.
who,
It's a gift.
it's an amazing gift. It's an amazing gift. Now, here's the interesting thing about you, Lillian, is that you are also the day of the snake. You're double snake. You're snake squared.
Yeah.
So when the challenge for snakes, okay, I'll get to the beautiful aspect of it in a moment. The challenge for snake energy is that because you're always thinking of an answer, and because you will not open your mouth until you know what you're talking about. You will do research, you will find things out, you will vet information, you will go the extra mile to know, so that when you do open your mouth and speak, you already know that it's right. So when someone comes at you and says, "I know more," but you know they're wrong, you'll say, "Well, thanks, but no thanks." And so there can be a misinterpretation of arrogance, or you think you're better than, and it's not true. It's not the truth. You want so desperately to have all the information for those you love and for yourself that you do the research, and so you know. So it's a misunderstanding. Now, the beauty of having snake in your workplace is obvious. You get the work done and it's stellar. When it's in your day, that's your core. That's how you defend yourself. That's how you explain yourself. That's identifying who you are. So in an argument or in describing something, the snake is there in the day. And in Asia, you would say, "I am a snake born the year of the rabbit," because your day is who you really are. So when it's at your core, and you are having a discussion and defending your values, you don't defend your values based on what Mickey Mouse said. You are really defending your values based on concrete experience and knowledge. You'd make an excellent scientist because you do have this analytical, dissecting mind and understanding. A snake is the person who will say, if your girlfriend came to you and said, "My husband and I are divorcing and he's such a jerk," you in your head would be thinking, "Well, he wasn't a jerk when you guys got married 3 years ago. But okay, honey, I'm so sorry you're going through this, but tell me what your role was in it." Because it's about balance and understanding all sides of the story before you form an opinion. So it's fascinating. And it's when I always tell my friends and my clients that if you want a solution, seek out a snake friend. Because if you're stuck and don't know what to do, they'll always help you. So it's a great energy. But your day, your hour, how you love, that energy that is 6 inches from your heart, closest to you, is Tiger. So you are, here's the thing about falling in love with Lillian. When someone meets you, they're like, "Oh, she's so gentle and she's such a lady and she's so," but not docile, very, very tender. And very elegant. When you move your hands, it's all very beautiful, like you were a ballerina at some point. You have this beautiful artistry with the way you move. And then they get to know you and they see that analytical mind at work. And then they fall in love with you. They need to find the nearest exit for when you get upset, because tigers, they'll never see it coming. Tiger energy, think about how a tiger stalks its prey. It lies in wait and it watches all the wildebeest walking by and running before it determines what it's going to do. So tiger energy will take a lot of it. Like, okay. And you can tell a tiger's mad, especially a tiger, because they get unusually quiet. It's like, whoop, they pull in and they think, in their heads thinking, "Keep going." And they may shoot a look that says, "You might want to stop." Because once the hatch is open and the tiger's out of the cage, you're not going to be able to grab him by the tail and put him back. So, but the thing about Tiger at your hour is that you love with such ferocity. You're so intense. If someone were to hurt someone you love, the claws could come out. It's like back up. And it's tiger moms, tiger people who love that with that energy, throw their arms in front of those they love, shove them behind them and say, "Don't you ever." And it's a ferocious, passionate, intense love that's dynamic. So you have rabbit, double snake, tiger. You were interesting. You're an interesting cocktail.
I want to hear yours, but I know it's like we only have a minute left. Give us your pearls for people to want to learn more about feng shuiing their life.
There are fantastic authors all over the internet about feng shui. I say dive in and find the one that vibrates best, that makes sense to you, like how I did. I read some and I didn't get it, but the ones I read just vibrated alongside how I already thought, because I grew up on the Farmer's Almanac. Do your research. There are several authors. There's a lot in Asia, but there's a huge, healthy dose of authors here in the United States and in Europe also, no matter where you are. Also in Brazil, there's a lot of, in South America, a lot of authors on feng shui that are doing stellar jobs. My suggestion is not only do you dive in, you find books, finding out who you are is most important. Yes, I have books out. They can, and I said books plural. That's a Freudian slip. I've got another one I've not finished.
Yeah.
But my app is coming out on Apple and Google, and you can find out your vibration on a daily basis.
We're going to talk a little bit about that when we go off the podcast. And we're going to continue our conversation with Melissa Yamaguchi. Thank you so much, Melissa, for everything that you're doing to bring awareness that there is a way that we can look at ourselves responsibly. Please remember, I'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott and Melissa Yamaguchi wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Good job. Good job. Here we go.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.
Okay, that was great. That was a lot more than what I was expecting as far as how do you get to know somebody. Now, how do you, because there is a knowing in you. There is just a knowing in you. There's a knowing in me. There's a knowing in all of us, but sometimes we ignore it.
Yes.
I ignored my knowing for a long time because it was very painful. I used to feel people's pain. I would gravitate to because I wanted to help them.
Yes.
I don't know what it was. I just needed to, I'd go to a party and I'd see two people by themselves and I'd eventually make my way to one and introduce another one. And then I could have a good time, and it was something that I knew was within me, and I was able to kind of like work it out so that I don't feel like I'm entertaining this one person all night long. I figured out I can introduce these people. So, how do you keep yourself from becoming judgmental or not turn somebody away and say, I'm not even going to, how do you protect yourself from someone could potentially be dangerous for you and still love them?
That's a great question. I had a woman who entered my life. Let me think here. Time, I lose track of time. I want to say in 2016, around there.
Okay.
She was introduced to me by a mutual friend, and very soon into the relationship, she kind of, I don't like this word, but I'm trying to think of she attached herself to me very quickly.
Okay.
And that does sometimes happen, as I'm sure it does with you, when you're in a position of lifting. Then people who are aching for that can kind of come around more. And so no problem. We became friendly. And I dare say we became really good friends. Mm-hmm. And she had a business opportunity and invited me in. And I was weary, but then I began researching it and I thought it was fine. I got involved. It turned out very poorly. Fast forward to today, or last fall, 2019, winter of 2019. She calls me because she's angry with me, and she was so verbally violent, verbally assaulting on the phone with me. And I'm driving in my car, and I had her on the car speakerphone. And, I could not put my mother said, "I'm surprised you didn't just hang up," mm-hmm. which is, I don't usually hang up, and it's not out of pride. It's just that I give respect to people, and I feel there's a way to end a conversation, and that's kind of a cheap shot, not a judgment call on somebody else. It's just my thing. Mm-hmm. But I could not pull myself away from the conversation. I was so stunned that she was willing to speak in the way that she was speaking to me. And it's not because I'm an angel. I've got enough kinks in my armor, but because I didn't do anything that warranted it. I didn't do anything. I mean, it was abusive. It was wildly abusive. And I have clients who have gone through or are going through some abuse in their lives. And it's the sensation of, it's a deer in headlights. You freeze thinking, this can't be happening to me.
Yeah,
I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
So the way that I have protected myself, and I'm a work in progress because this just happened last year,
Mhm.
is I personally give myself permission to say, okay, I'm on a journey. I don't know how long, I don't know how long my clock is, how long the time is set on this life that I've been given on this planet.
Mhm.
I'm not arrogant. So I'm not going to assume I've got from now until, I'm 220. I am so limited on what I can do in a day that this is completely taking me off my path to doing good for other people. So instead of me hating her, which is very natural for me to think, well, God, what a jerk, what a jackass.
Mhm.
Instead of me going there, I think I may have let myself swim in that pool for about 5 minutes. And once I got off the phone, but I had to pull away and think, what just happened? You know what? I have got to get her out of my life so that I can continue to do good. And so that she is not sidetracked from potential good. Because
Yes.
if she's looking at me and she has that much hatred towards me, she's off her track. I'm possibly doing good in this world. So I'm going to release her and push her away, and I'm going to protect me because I'm responsible. I have 2 children, and I know they're 18 and 20, but I am responsible to them until the day
Sure.
I die, even if they're 48 and 50. I am
Yeah.
responsible then to the day I die. And so I keep myself strong for my husband, my people, my clients, my friends, my family who rely upon me. And she had stuck a knife in my throat and was my neck and was pulling all the blood out. She
Sure,
didn't
sure.
care. So you give yourself permission by knowing I have to do good in my life. And believe it or not, she needs to do good. I don't want anything to do with it, but I got to get her off me and over there. That's
Yeah.
how I did it. And that's what I do. I just think, let them go on to do what they were meant to do, because surely it's not to be negative in my life.
But did you have any warning signs from, so you ignored the warning signs?
I ignored the warning signs because I ultimately, and this is going to sound arrogant, and I'll ask for forgiveness beforehand, because I deal with energy and I understand how it works. I know her energy was in such a way that when she was having a low day, I would never push her buttons. I knew that. So I was gentle. What I didn't account for, and this I will say, is because I am not a clinical psychiatrist. I study energy, but I ignored what were borderline psychosis. There's a severe narcissistic paranoia that she is saddled with. And when I would hear her say things, I would think it was kind of quirky, how the whole world was, she would say something that was so wildly narcissistic. So yes, there were signs, but I believed that I could help her. And I don't think you should give up on people, but as she became more possessive of me, I kept thinking, well, she's just missing these things. I kept forgiving the issue. And it doesn't mean I needed to abandon her. Maybe with her personality and as strong as it is, it had to erupt. I would like to think not. But if I had to do it all over again, I think I would have gently pulled away in a different way so it wasn't as troublesome to her. Another person came into my life and she saw this woman as a threat. We're grown women. I mean, I'm not, this is in 8th grade, but she was so threatened by this other woman. The things she said to me on the phone about that woman and about me were so horrific. Her verbiage was so bad and violent that I probably wouldn't have let it escalate to that level. I saw her getting jealous before and I would have gently pulled away. But I think we all are guilty when we care of giving people the benefit of the doubt. We do. I don't know if it's just women. I know some men that do it also, but I think when you're a caring spirit and you're navigating through this planet, seeking others to help from one end of the party to the other, you overlook that it may be hurting you, because we know that it's such a great thing to help people. So I think it's a day I'd probably be navigating that challenge the rest of my life, Lily.
And I think that's true. I think we all have these gifts that can become curses if we
Yes.
let them. And what I'm hearing you say through this whole scenario that you experience, which we can learn from, is that, trust your intuition.
Yes.
Give people the
Yes.
benefit of the doubt, but trust your intuition.
That's right. That's exactly right. Because the people will show you who they are early on. They really will. And they'll test to see, especially if it's someone who's not healthy, they'll test to see how far they can push. And if you're just happy, like I'm usually pretty happy, you just ignore it. But my guide to myself is to take a deep breath and slow down, just listen and slowly move away, slowly become busy doing something else.
Well, I love, I love how you've taken because that's a lot. I mean, people are born every day,
Yes.
different hours of the day, and they have like you were able to know all this information. How long? I mean, is this something that just became natural for you to know, like my birthday, for example, May 14th, 1963, 4:03 p.m. How long did it take you to learn this and it become like part of your breath?
I'm going to say that the original tenets that what I've learned happened instantly because it was so similar. I could correlate it to what I'd learned through the Farmer's Almanac and growing up, understanding the lay of the land. But the specifics and understanding all that, I've been studying Feng Shui for over 20 years.
Wow.
So I've been teaching it for 10. So I was a student. I'm still a student, but I was strictly a student for 10 years and applying it to my life. And then this last 10, I've been traveling around the world speaking
And
about
helping.
it.
And you are a great speaker.
Thank you very much.
It's very encouraging to be able to, that so someone like me who doesn't really understand, maybe intuitively I do things and I go, I don't know how I knew that. I don't know how I did that. I don't know how and when I was younger, I kind of like ignored my intuition. Like I said, I kind of like second guessed myself. But then once I reconnected with my intuition, and I'm okay with who I am, and realizing that although I'm okay with who I am, I still want to grow. I still want to do all those things. And what's the first thing, other than you're saying reading books, what's the first thing we can do to kind of like bring on that energy and ask for that energy to be a part of our life?
There, I know there are podcasts and video and different methods of learning about Feng Shui, but I would say that the first thing is to discover. The most important is the year you're born, to understand how you vibrate on a social level. And I think, if you're the year of the rabbit, and if I were to tell you, going deeper into that energy, what that means, if I were to explain to you that rabbits don't like chaos in a crowd. If you're out at a club and a fight breaks out, you're going to be one of the first people out of the club because it is upsetting. Rabbits can have trouble with irritable bowel syndrome. They can have they hold a lot of anxiety in because they don't want to be disrespectful. They are diplomatic. They don't want to rock the boat, that they will hold it in their stomach to the point of self-discomfort, like, oh, I shouldn't be here. They have this gut intuition. I shouldn't go into that club. I shouldn't go to that party. Rabbits more than any other energy, faster than any other energy. It's when you don't listen to it that your body tries to give you a message, right? So it kicks you in your stomach and you go, oh, my stomach doesn't feel good. I need to go home, because your body heard what your mind was already saying and what your intuition was saying. So rabbits, if you understand that and you understand how you navigate through your world, and you can find that out online. You just type up, my Chinese birthday is May 14th, 1963. I was born at 4:03 p.m. What is that? Then a lot of it will come up. The only one that it may not come up readily is the day, because that's the one that fluctuates so wildly. Somebody born on May 14th, 1963 is not the same energy as someone born May 14th, 1975 or May 14th, 1982. Because that month and day and year, because the year's different, it shifts the day. The month will stay the same. Always around May 14th, you're going to be the month of snake. Always 1963 from mid-February to the following January, you're going to be rabbit. But that day, fluctuates wildly. So you may not be able to find it online, but I think that more of my clients have been telling me they can find it. Once you discover that, get a book, look up those animal energies, the rat, the ox, the tiger, all those energies, and read about it. Understand it. This is not, I'm not poo-pooing Western astrology at all, but this is not just about how you align with the stars. Feng Shui is about how you are walking through the energy that's coming from this earth that we're all on. And Western astrology is about how you align with the stars. It's beautiful. This is concrete. That is, I'm not saying that's not important. I'm just saying what I teach is with Feng Shui is how are you navigating around your neighborhood, around your colleagues, when you're working on the internet, what are you doing? Once you have an understanding of that, you need to read each one of those animals and really grasp. If you're born the year of the ox, the month of the tiger, the day of the sheep, and the hour of the horse, what does that mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So study each animal. And once you study those animals, then you'll have an understanding of who you are. And only then can you begin to understand how to work with other people. You have to understand who you are first.
I like that. And so before we go, let us know how we can get your app. Tell us about
It's
your app.
on iTunes as well as Google Play. It's going to be called My Energy. And if I'm not mistaken, it's going to be live. Let's see, today is Tuesday. If I'm not mistaken, it's going to be live on the either the 17th or the 20th. Let me make sure I'm not lying to you.
Okay. And by the way, my stands for Melissa Yamaguchi,
That's
energy,
right.
which I think is so cute. Energy.
Yeah, it's going to be live on the 20th, which is this coming Monday.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and download that app, and then you'll send us the energy. So how do we read that? Do we put in our date?
You'll put in your birthday, and then
wow.
then every single morning. Let me see if I can tell you. Like this was mine for today, and because you're a rabbit, this is yours too. I'll read our energy out. Good morning. Your energy today is high. You need to go for it today. You've got all the goods, and the universe is not holding you back. So that tells you, let's go. There are some days when it could be low that the message will come across. Your energy today is low. Bite your tongue and give yourself a 5-second pause before you answer.
God, that's great
So
advice.
there's or one day your energy today is low. Don't listen to the voices in your head. They're lying. So there's messages that come across. Now, how those little messages come across is me in meditation. I ask God to give me the answers, and then I write them. So
I love it. Well, I'm looking forward to downloading the app. Is there anything else we'd like to add before we go?
I'd like to say that regardless of what the energies are around you in your life, if you discover, oh, you're the rooster, my wife's a rabbit, my husband's a rabbit, we're not going to get along, those are opposing energies. Every single energy can work together, but it begins with you understanding who you are. My husband's energy and mine is opposite in some areas. And I realize that if I'm vibrating at a lower energy, we're not going to discuss something because we're both at a standstill. Once you understand who you are, your relationships with your children, with your colleagues, with everybody becomes richer, because when you own your energy, you own your life. And it's the most important thing.
I love it. I love it. And so what we can do is we could probably have a conversation how to use this energy to interact with our family members and our children. I'll be taking lots of notes there, because
Yes.
I guess the tiger and the rabbit and the snake come out of me when it's something that, someone you love, you want to protect them, and
That's right.
and that's when I become less diplomatic.
Yes, that's right.
And so I need to learn how to do that a little bit better. Anyway, Melissa Yamaguchi, thank you so much for everything that you're doing to create awareness that we are in control, and that our energy not only affects us, but it affects the world, and how we relate to the others is how we relate to ourselves is how we relate to others. And that could always be improved.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Lillian. It was such a pleasure. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity.
Oh, thank you so much. So just say goodbye to YouTube and Facebook, and we'll see you soon.